All right, guys, welcome back to Ash's Reality Recaps, Curse of Oak Island, Season 11, Episode 15, On the Target. My God, do I have a love-hate relationship with this show. Mostly a hate-hate relationship, but at this point, I've invested so much time over the last 15 episodes, 11 seasons, that I just can't turn it off and walk away. Now, an episode like last night, it's one of them ones where you just kind of get excited and then just realize that it's the same old bullshit. In this episode, four main things happened. The first one was last week. The team found some leather boot workings down by the shore underneath of the road. They took those to a professional this week, and that professional determined that was leather. Very old leather. Actual leather from before the supposed money shaft was found, and that it probably belonged to an officer. Now, again, it's one of those things on this island. We've already been able to determine that at some point in time, military was on this island. So it's probably from one of the officers in the military, most likely French by the sounds of it, but possibly Spanish, Portuguese, or British. Pretty big dart to throw at that board, but that was the leather that was found down by the water during last episode. We also had an expert come in and go into this whole Nolan's Cross thing. This has been a very common situation over the last several years where the large rocks on the island form into a cross, and everybody has basically said that in some point in time, if you can cross two of these rocks together, shine them in a certain direction, it'll point to the treasure. Well, we're at it again, and the team looked at this Nolan's Cross situation. They tied in this random stone down on the shore. It's off the screen here as a C through the drilled stone one. And look, if you watch, it's going directly to the money pit area and the garden shaft. So now throughout this episode, this random line that they've created off of these stones points directly at the garden shaft. Because apparently in the last 11 seasons, they never took any of that into consideration. Anyhow, moving on. Now, over in the swamp area, Billy Gerhardt was able to dig down into the swampy area and actually pull up some relatively large stumps. Now, why is this intriguing? This ties into the love-hate relationship I have with the show. For the past 11 seasons, the theory has been that the swamp is man-made. Well, being able to dig these stumps out from below the swamp shows that it truly was at some point or another forested. Now, one of the things that's intriguing about this is there's no lying timber near these stumps. That led the team to basically theorize that all of the standing timber that was there was cut down and used for the different levels of the money pit. If you recall back to all of the other episodes where they talk about the different levels leading down to the money pit where the water traps were, those were unhewed timbers. They were round logs. So those round logs could be the logs out of the swamp. They could have chopped those down and then made it a swamp to cover up any of the evidence of those trees being cut down. Far-fetched, but it's very possible. Again, that's the love-hate part. Is there something intriguing about this? Because this shows that the swamp was man-made. So let's move on to the next part. And finally in this episode is the garden shaft. Dumas Contracting has finally reached the bottom of the garden shaft and are digging away a couple feet of clay to get down to that tunnel that lies beneath the garden shaft that now ties into that mysterious line from Nolan's Cross. But that is whatever. They tend to make up a lot of storylines in this show, so that's nothing surprising there. But the intriguing part is that Dumas Contracting has made it to the bottom of the garden shaft, and the Lagina brothers were able to go down and actually help dig out that clay. And in the picture here, they're actually touching the timbers, the logs underneath of the garden shaft that make up that tunnel beneath it. They can just see by looking at it, it's a relatively old tunnel because they're just round logs. So the idea in moving into the future episodes is that they'll be able to get some wood samples off of that and carbon date that lumber to find out how old that tunnel is. Again, love-hate relationship. This is the part I find intriguing because, yeah, they did find wood at the bottom of the garden shaft, but it truly shows that there's something down there, which to me makes it intriguing. It's why I'm hooked on this show. But at the end of the day, for this episode, they identified that leather is leather, and it's old leather, probably from an officer. We know the military was on the island. They found some wood in the swamp, and they found some wood at the bottom of the garden shaft. So that's Curse of Oak Island. Broken down as short as I possibly could to save you an hour of your time. Hopefully that helps. Ash's Reality Recaps, Curse of Oak Island, Season 11. See you next week.